Let's now shift our attention to the other big story that we are tracking here in WION. Now, the much-awaited Shanghai Cooperation Defence Ministers meeting has concluded, and the Indian Defence Minister Rajnath Singh chaired the summit under the theme Secure SCO. Now, Rajnath Singh started the meeting with an issue right at the top of the cards: combating terrorism. Representing India, he said that the country believes in maintaining peace and security based on UN Charter provisions. And also on the road to achieve this, two elements are crucial. One is to root out terrorism collectively, and second is to hold those accountable. A statement by the Indian Defence Minister has said, and I quote here, "If a nation shelters terrorists, then it not only poses a threat to others, but also for itself as well. If we want to make the SCO a stronger and a more credible international organisation, then our topmost priority should be to effectively deal with terrorism." Now, the defence ministers of China, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Russia, Tajikistan and Uzbekistan attended the meeting in person in New Delhi, while Pakistan is participated in the meeting virtually. India had also invited Belarus and Iran as observer states in the SCO defence ministers meeting. Now, before the headlining event, Rajnath Singh sat down with his Russian counterpart Sergei Shoigu, who visited India for the first time since Russia launched its war against Ukraine. The two ministers discussed wide-ranging issues from military ties to industrial partnership. Now, yesterday was a big day for bilaterals as well. The Indian Defence Minister held talks with his Chinese counterpart. The situation at the India-China border was discussed at length. Now, the Indian Defence Minister also held bilaterals with his Kazakh, Tajik, Uzbek and also Iranian counterparts, where he emphasized on defence cooperation. And our principal diplomatic correspondent Siddhant Siban has been tracking this story very closely for us and has sent us this report. Listen in.
Well, we saw India hosting the SCO Defence Ministers meeting earlier today, in which the Indian Defence Minister Rajnath Singh sent out clear message to China and Pakistan. On Pakistan, we know that he said that when it comes to supporters of terrorism, there should be accountability that needs to be fixed. On China, it is the need for respect respect for the territorial integrity. Now, we know that how India-China relationship has been on a free fall after the Chinese aggressive actions in India's northern borders. So, of course, there were messages sent, but also India focusing on issues like counter-terrorism, radicalization, on issues like connectivity and how India has been helping the region and beyond as well when it comes to humanitarian issues. In fact, the Indian Defence Minister pointed out a recent example of how India helped Turkey in the aftermath of that deadly earthquake. But essentially, this meeting also provided the Indian side opportunity to hold several bilaterals, including bilateral with the Chinese side and with the Russian side, which took place earlier today. The Chinese bilateral was something that was one of the key showstopper essentially in terms of the outcomes. We saw the readouts by both sides, the Indian side clearly pointing out that how China has violated the existing agreements, while China, of course, in this readout saying that everything is normal and stable at the border. So it clearly shows divergences in the position from both New Delhi and Beijing.
And also to give us more perspective on what these meetings of the defence ministers at the SCO, of course, meant, we're being joined in by Mr. Pankaj Saran, who is the former Deputy National Security Advisor to India and also the former Indian Ambassador to Russia. Sir, thank you very much indeed for taking time out and speaking to us here in WION. Now, the question that I want to ask you is this. When the Indian and the Chinese defence ministers sat across the table facing each other, there were no handshakes. But the Indian and the Chinese defence ministers did sit across the table. How crucial do you think these kind of bilateral meetings are, given the tensions at the line of actual control?
I think it's a very important visit. The fact that he decided to come to India, despite whatever has happened in the past, shows that they are trying and they are wanting to try to improve the relationship. The problem is that the relationship cannot be improved unless and until there is peace and tranquility on the border, and that we adhere to the agreements that both sides signed, and that we make concrete progress on the line of actual control. But it is also a signal about the importance they attach to India that they have decided to come. So I wouldn't read too much into the lack of a handshake. For me, the more important point is that they actually met.
Ambassador, the other aspect that I need to ask you about is the in-person visit by the Russian defense minister. Now, how do you think Moscow actually perceives and approaches these kind of regional groupings, given the fact that since the invasion of Ukraine, the West has, of course, been trying to isolate Russia as much as it can? So how does Russia approach these kind of regional groupings?
Well, I think the visit of the Russian defense minister is definitely less surprising than the visit of the Chinese defense minister. Because with Russia, we really do not have any bilateral differences. And we are among the very few friends that Russia has left in the world. So, and we have a very strong defense relationship, which is monitored at the level of the defense ministers. Obviously, Russia is under Western sanctions and some kind of a Western boycott. So for Russia, India is a very important friend and partner. And the SCO is an organization in which Russia feels itself very comfortable. So that is the reason why I'm not surprised at all that the Russian defense minister has come and has had a fairly good meeting with our defense minister based on the press release. And because there are so many things to discuss in the India-Russia relationship. So that's basically the broad background.
And also, Ambassador, the fact that, Russia has managed to hold its own in terms of trade and economy despite the crippling Western sanctions. Do you think Russia can, in fact, continue to do so, given the sanctions that the West is trying to heap on Moscow?
Well, the Russians have surprised everyone, including their own people, about how they could withstand the Western sanctions. The fact is that the sanctions were not comprehensive. There were some loopholes. For example, there were no sanctions on export of oil and gas. So that is what kept Russia afloat in terms of its earnings, foreign exchange earnings, its income growth, etc. So Russia is a big economy in the sense that it is internally quite self-sufficient. So for the immediate, I don't see any adverse impact on the economy, but in the years ahead, whether it is technology or integration with the rest of the world, it will have problems that it will have to confront. But so far, it has surprised everyone, both in terms of the value of the ruble, in terms of its foreign exchange earnings, in terms of its exports of energy or fertilizer or food. So it has done reasonably well under the circumstances.
And also, Ambassador, how do you see the India-Russia equation going forward? Now, India quite clearly follows a policy of strategic autonomy, but it's a new world. Since Russia invaded Ukraine, how do you see India-Russia equation in these circumstances?
I think the relationship is there to stay. It is resilient. It is based on India's national interests and obviously based on Russia's national interests. But the two seem to be converging to some extent, and they will continue to be that way. We will diversify our relationship to other areas away from military, in areas which are of our interest. We will keep engaged with Russia in the Eurasian continent, in the global community of nations. And we are also telling Russia that you must avoid military means to settle differences with the NATO and the West.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.